see you all, and I'm very excited that we are back to Power Up Series in person after 2 years, almost 2 years and a half, doing it online. So it feels really strange to do it an event in person, but at the same time feels really excited that now we open up it again and we'll be able to meet amazing people and doing amazing events that we used to do before pandemic. So thank you so much for the time and for being here. So we have a very exciting guest today with us, and we start saying thank you first to our sponsors, because without them we wouldn't be here. So thank you so much, Hago 3, for having us for the first time here. Again, we are very, very happy to be back. And of course to Fino Taste, that today is supplying us with amazing food and drinks. Thank you so much, Junior. I don't know where you are, but thank you so much for the partnership. So we have amazing guests. We have Alex Buckland from Bumble. So Bumble is one of the clients of Imaging Power. We've been working together for 3 years and a half, I think now. So I'm very happy to have Alex with us tonight. We also have Neve Fear-Smith from Hello Partner Magazine. So thank you so much for being here. Graziella Toscan from Melissa. Thank you so much. Very excited to hear you talking tonight. Yvonne Victoria is our talent from MG Talent. Not sure if Yvonne is here yet, so she's coming. But Yvonne is one of our talents that we represent at Imaging Power. We've seen the host of MG Talent, so we're very happy to welcome her today as well. Rebecca Hobbs from Stylus. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for joining us. And Catherine Cestelli from Tastemade. So to start with, I have to welcome our incredible, lovely Edward. That's going to be our moderator tonight. Edward, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, so come over.
Hello. How are we doing? We good? Yeah, if we're good, can I see thumbs in the air if we're good? Thumbs in the air? Amazing, amazing. It's a pleasure to be your moderator today. So we're going to get into it. The event today will be broken down into 3 sessions. And in between that, we'll have some networking opportunities. And between that as well, we have our amazing VR experience by in-house team. So please, during the networking event, please go and check that out. And then to the right of me over there, we also have our food and drinks, so please check that out as well, please. So we have an amazing first session, data for high impact, from strategy to results. Without further ado, I'm going to invite our amazing speakers to join me on stage. So we have the pleasure of inviting Alex Buckland. She is EMEA Brand Lead at Bumble. Please give her a round of applause as she comes to the stage. Second, we have Neve Fear-Smith, who is a journalist at Hello Partner. Please give her a round of applause. And last but not least, we have our very own Paula Albuquerque, Head of Influencer Marketing at MG. Amazing. So how are you doing, ladies? Are we good?
Yes, very well.
Nice, nice. So it would be great to just hear a little bit about you 3 individually in terms of what you actually do, and just to give a little intro to the crowd. So we'll start with you, Alex.
Sure. Hi everyone, I'm Alex. I lead the EMEA Brand Marketing at Bumble, so responsible for regional campaigns, our always on influencer strategies, social, and oversee about 11 markets across Bumble's remit.
Amazing, thank you. Yourself? Neve?
I'm Neve, and I'm the journalist for Hello Partner, previously Talking Influence. We've recently done a bit of a relaunch, and we're now covering everything under the partnerships umbrella, so influencer, affiliate, performance, anything you can think of. So that's me.
Nice. And yourself, Paula?
Most of you already know me. I'm the Global Head of Influence at MG Power, leading the strategic client output for global brands here in the business.
Amazing, amazing, thank you. So let's just have an amazing conversation. Please feel free to share your views and response to our questions. And for the audience as well, we'll try to leave 5 minutes at the end. If anyone has any questions, we'll try and get those in at the end as well. So I'll open up the conversation with one question. So and feel free to come in. So why should brands care about data when it comes to influencer campaigns? So let's start with that.
Well, I can give it a go. I think we talk a lot about the proliferation of the creator economy, but I think what gets me really excited is that now brands are looking at influencers way more than just an awareness channel, right? And that comes, I think, in line with how social media is evolving and how brands look at influence as a channel that spans much beyond just the social remit and space. So I think that almost encourages brands to use data in learnings attributed to the data on social to actually apply to influencers as a channel in other spaces, right? Take your NFTs, your metaverse, in other spaces as well. Experiential is gaining traction as well. So getting creative about influence as a channel and understanding that goes much beyond just the social space.
Yeah, I would second that. I think the other thing from our kind of perspective when we're thinking about influence is influencers are, generally speaking, our audience, as well as people that can speak to our audience. So it's a really good way of having a one-to-one conversation with your consumer, but also understanding what your consumer's looking for, what they're engaging with, and what they're wanting to understand and learn and educate themselves on around your brand. So I think the other opportunity from our side is it really helps you deepen engagement and build that trust and credibility quickly. So when you're looking at launching into a new audience or launching into a new country, it shortcuts a lot of that trust that you need to earn at the beginning. And I think it's a really valuable way for us to deepen the engagement with our brand, build those favorability metrics, as well as building awareness. But it's the trust that comes from those people, I think, that has the biggest influence on brands' performance.
Yeah, would you say, in terms of like looking at data, has that always been sort of the case for brands working with influencers? Has data always been sort of a key factor?
Yeah, I think, well, at Bumble definitely, because we're a tech brand first and foremost, and we're in the business of connecting people. We need to understand the people that we're trying to connect, what they're looking for, what their behaviors are, and what their needs are. And I think the biggest thing for us is we don't just think of data as performance data, so channel metrics or business metrics and brand metrics, but also a source of insights. And it's where those insights come from that we never want to make assumptions or go off anecdotal evidence when it comes to our brand and what people are looking for. So it's really at the real heart of everything that we do. And I think a lot of our best campaigns have come from surveys or insights or quant and qual that have informed the way that we build our strategy from the very beginning. So it's about building from data to start with and then using data to optimize and learn and improve your performance throughout the process.
Amazing, amazing. And I would say for Bumble, is sort of data how you would pick specific influencers to work with, or to sort of retain?
I think it kind of comes in two ways. We use data to identify what it is we're going to talk about. So, what does our audience need? What do they want to engage with? And then we pick the influencers that we feel like will, A, resonate with the audience when it comes to that topic of conversation, but also influencers who have high levels of engagement with our target audience and influencers who have trust and the credibility with our community. And then we try and build a kind of matrix where we're looking at influencers that might deliver against different objectives. So an influencer combination might be a macro influencer that has that large reach but maybe lower engagement, with an army of mid-tier and micro influencers that really drive that deep engagement and have more personalized content and deliver that more personalized experience. So it's all about the kind of data at every touch point, essentially, to build our strategy.
It's definitely a fine balance. I would definitely second that, in a way that the industry is now shifting the focus purely from vanity metrics and starting to really understand the role of influencer across the full funnel, right? The full consumer funnel. And I think that is very much in line with the work we have done for Bumble, right? We've started purely looking at an awareness piece and influencers that could drive the word about the app. And then we've pivoted to driving conversations and really understanding about a niche community across the UK and evolved from there. And I think Bumble has done a remarkable job in terms of utilizing the influencer channel to really connect with their audiences and understand their target audiences. Not only just looking at vanity metrics or your contracted KPI is on paper, but how we can drive real value to communities, right? I think a a case that is very strong about that is Black Love. I always love to use that case. It's probably one of our most amazing campaigns we have delivered. And that really touched Black communities across the UK. We could see that on numbers, but also on peer-to-peer conversations as well.
Yeah, I think that campaign's a really good example of data from start to finish. So we knew that we wanted to start building a relationship with Black British communities. We knew that they had specific needs and wants, but we needed to find out what they were. So we started out with a survey across the UK that helped us understand, and we actually found that 74% of our audience were looking for more representation of Black British love, British being important, as well as the Black community piece, where there was loads of Americanized portrayals of love, but the authentic experience of people in this country wasn't coming through. And I think that gave us a really specific thing to focus on, which we then gave to influencers, worked with influencers to build that. And I think that was the first campaign where the channel metrics aligned with the brand and business metrics that we were seeing. So you could not only see like performance, but you could see the attribution of that performance and the impact that that was having on the business. And then on top of that, you layered on all of these positive sentiment, positive conversations that the community were having. And you kind of were like, aha, okay, this feels like something interesting that we need to keep exploring and keep pushing. And I think that was quite a pivotal moment for the way that we think of data throughout the whole consumer experience.
Yeah, you know, it's a great campaign. It's one of the reasons why I joined.
That's amazing.
I was going to say, Neve, a question for you. In terms of like your sort of insight into the marketing world, how do you see this heavy focus on data, you know, changing, you know, influencer campaigns?
It's definitely a topic that has come to the forefront over the past year in particular, I would say. Obviously, perhaps 10 years ago, a little bit more than that, a testimonial may be enough for an influencer brand to partner together. But now with influencers getting so much outreach from brands, actually having raw data that they can take a look at from a wider demographic perspective is super helpful. And it isn't just data, because data is collected from real people, which is obviously essential and makes the process so much more seamless for influencers that are trying to select the brands they want to work with and brands that are selecting the influencers they want to work with. And I think a lot of the time data is sort of misconstrued in people's brains as just being numbers. But I say, it's really important and valuable to remember that that is real people behind those numbers. And to me, that's kind of the thing I wanted to sort of break down, that sort of kind of a myth or sort of thought towards it being sort of like statistics and numbers, like Alex said, like just knowing that people wanted to see a portrayal of Black British love is the kind of data that, you know, someone like me, a strategist, would use and build campaigns on. Yeah,
I think it's really interesting. Like we've kind of seen a shift in data away from, to Paula's point, vanity metrics to like a deeper audience understanding. And we did a campaign at the end of 2020 where we wanted to understand what people's mindset was going into the new year. And obviously it had been COVID and everyone had been cooped up, so dating wasn't exactly what it was. And I remember this statistic that was 60% of people just wanted to get to 2021 ASAP. And you know, when you're like, okay, I feel like there's a lot of frustration pent up in our audience. There's a lot of like hopelessness almost, like I just need a reset. And we actually had additional data that showed that 50% of people were like, I just need a reset in the new year. And I think that really helped us think, okay, it's not just about what we talk about, like where we might give people dating tips, or we might help them through this difficult time, but it's also a tonal guide. Like we need to be uplifting, we need to be funny, we need to be entertaining, we can't be heavy or serious. And I think that data really helped us get to this comedy series that we did, and we had amazing influencers that we worked with, but it was a real pivotal point that emotion came through in the data, not just the number. It was all about the people and how they were feeling.
I think on top of that, it's about thinking that not one size fits all, right? I think what is lacking across the industry is to build tailored bespoke attribution models, plug more and more the results and the impact behind influencer to the brand's back end, and really understanding the real value behind the influencer impact. And that not always translates into your vanity metrics. Sometimes you have to actually dig deeper, understand sentiment across your campaign, to Alex's point, understand how different creatives are playing with actionable touch points across audiences, right? What communities and consumers are actually reacting more towards, right? Whenever you have a like or an engagement piece, for instance, that means that the person is actually taking action, right? Is engaging with the content. That means that the content is resonating. So looking just beyond the vanity metrics that we were used to and looking to really make sense of that impact in a deeper level.
I think, sorry.
I was just going to say, I think data is just as much of an important part of storytelling and painting a picture as real lived human experiences. Like you say, your statistics and data showed that people just wanted to make it through to 2021. And that is, you can create content from that. You think they want to be happy, they want to laugh, they just need something easy to engage in and uplifting, and that the data can paint that picture, as well as obviously having the conversations with people, asking them what they want, and that you can see it all in one place and gain more responses and more data than you would if you went and spoke to people, because it's only 24 hours in a day to do that. So yeah, I think it's an essential part of painting a picture.
Yeah, completely. I think also to what Paula was saying, like, I think that's where brands have the most opportunity to improve the way we do influence marketing, is that attribution model, because a lot of what we can see is like, you know, use a tracking link, but with dating at least, you don't really see a consumer click on an influencer ad immediately. They might see it, feel inspired, go away, and then come back to their phone an hour later or a couple of hours later and decide to download the app. So sometimes those basic ways of doing attribution don't really reflect consumer behavior, and I think that's something on our side where building that attribution model is essential to understanding influencer performance better in the future, and also looking at ways that we can quantify some of the intangible benefits of working with influencers. So how do we quantify credibility? How do we quantify influence? Like, what do those metrics look like that help us build that bigger picture? Because I think from a brand perspective, that will be what will help us unlock the depth and the nuance of influence marketing.
I would 100% second that, as well as keeping authenticity as your biggest social currency, right? That's what's going to lend the biggest impact for brands. And also, to Alex's point, really understanding that that impact goes beyond what is translated based on tracking links. You really have to dig deeper. You really have to dig on sentiment analysis. You really have to understand the conversations that are taking place. And the ongoing and incremental impact that an influencer lands is not immediate, right? Sometimes it really builds up over time, and it takes time to get traction. But that is an impact, a sort of impact that we cannot neglect. I think the more brands look into that, the more we can evolve our programs towards meaningful strategies led by insights.
Yeah, and I think from sort of an outside perspective, obviously not being from a brand or an agency, I think that if brands are sort of thinking, I don't know what sort of data I need to be looking at to decide whether an influencer is worth working with or whether they fit my brand and vice versa, I think agencies are obviously amazing at bridging that gap and having that more sort of tailored marketing aspect to make those like conversations happen and help align that, where obviously a brand like Bumble, obviously you're super successful, super big, but for some sort of smaller brands that don't have a dedicated like a data person or like huge marketing team, obviously working with an agency is a great way to bridge that gap and hopefully build stronger partnerships.
Absolutely, and I might be disclosing more than I should here, but there's a lot of products there out in the industry and a lot of solutions focused on trying to attribute basically middle and bottom funnel performance. But I think to our conversation today, there's so much more we need to look at beyond just the metrics, right? We're making something exciting, that's all I'm going to say, but a very data-centric approach that can really provide insight as to how we evolve strategy, influencer strategy and digital strategy as a whole, based on attributing sentiment, attributing community impact, brand lifts, etc. So I cannot disclose more than that, but it's coming.
Yeah. Question. So looking at it from like the other lens now. So do we think influencers or content creators are looking at data in terms of the way they create their content, in terms of the impact it's having, because they're speaking directly to their communities. So essentially they could have more of an authentic voice, before you kind of touch points with the brands and agencies.
Yeah, I think we see data play a really key role in the way that influencers create content, and actually quite often when we work on campaigns with influencers, they'll ask us what data we have that has come from the wider community, because I think their audience also are interested in that kind of thing. Yeah. So we did our Romance Gap campaign around International Women's Day, and we had an army of insights into the barriers that were being created by different gender norms across the dating and relationship journey. And one of the things that we found was that 74% of people were feeling that there was a difference in the expected behaviours based on your gender identity. Yeah. And there were multiple different data points that backed that up. And what we did was we kind of packaged that up for influencers, and we said, here's inspiration for your content. Right, yeah. And so each influencer would dive into a different insight, and they would come up with a different narrative that felt most relevant to their audience. But it helped with that inspiration piece, I think, from their point of view, because sometimes I feel like brands can give a very brand-led brief to an influencer, and actually when you can give them interesting talk points to riff off, it can lead to content that is so much more compelling for their audience, and also conveys so much more about you as a brand, because it has a lot of depth to it. So I think it's really important to use data in that content creation process, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think that influencers should certainly be looking at data, because like I said earlier, going back to 10 years ago, there was a little bit more sort of freedom to experiment. There weren't as many people doing content creation full time, earning their sole primary income from doing so. So just sort of relying on what a select few of like your biggest supporters are saying, I love this content, please do more of it, is obviously great, and you need to listen to your audience, the verbal like feedback that they're giving you. But if you really want to make something of it, like this is going to be your career, your sort of going to get you through life for the foreseeable, then definitely looking at data and seeing if the data in the comments that are providing feedback are aligning is essential, just to make sure that you're on the right track for longevity in your content creation career.
From an agency perspective, and I believe from a creator economy perspective, data is the creator's social currency, basically. So before a brand contracts an influencer or an agency, we will always be looking at data, right? Actionable data mainly, now that we're evolving a bit more from vanity metrics, but really understanding what touches and resonates with their communities. If we're talking with the right communities, sometimes we look at different ways to connect with adjacent interests as well, with diverse influencers, to really understand if a message or a product resonates more across one another. So it's really experimental in a way, but I feel like influencers need to take that experimental advice as well on board, and really understand what the data is telling them about what communities want to see, and what, in terms of authenticity, is really connecting in a deeper level with their followers.
Yeah, and I think from a brand point of view as well, data is a really powerful way for influencers to work with brands that are maybe more unexpected. So I think quite often, dating apps, it's lifestyle influencers, here's your list of lifestyle influencers. But if you talk only through lifestyle influencers, you're going to talk to the same people over and over and over again, and you start to lose the sense of scale, you start to lose the diversity of your audience. So I think data can often give brands the courage to step out of that expected space and start working with influencers across different verticals. And that can really, unlock more opportunity for influencers, but also unlock more opportunity for brands.
Yeah, no, that kind of leads to my question to Paula, in terms of like agencies. How can they play a role in sort of educating like brands? Like, we know Bumble already sort of ahead in their use of data, but brands in general using data.
That's a big question. Well, firstly, by providing a broad intelligence, right? Data intelligence beyond just a certain niche. I think when you work within a brand, you're very niche oriented, right? You really understand about that space, but not necessarily what is happening across the other spaces. And I think that's the beauty of experimenting with influencer marketing. Sometimes, and we are testing it a lot with clients, for instance, with beauty, going beyond just beauty influencers, exploring with lifestyle, travel influencers, with audiences with adjacent interests. So it's really thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
Brands that want to be in the forefront of conversations need to think outside the box. They cannot be in the same space as their competitors. They need to be one step ahead. And I think we bring that intelligence and that background that normally one brand would not have, because they're really looking and focusing into their own niches.
Yeah, thank you. Just one last question, sort of diving into like the Web3 space. How do you see sort of data, agencies and influencers working together, using that data in that space? Do you see that evolving, or do you see that being something that's essential the way we're using it now? Not to you specifically.
I would say I'm open to some conversations that are going to sell Web3 to me a little bit more, because at the moment I don't know how to form my opinion on it. And I sort of was thinking about virtual influencers, for example.
Yeah.
They are essentially a big ball of data. They're just completely reactive to what's going on, in sort of spreadsheets and stuff, I guess. Obviously, sort of human influence as well goes into that. And obviously for some brands, they're seeing that really succeed. Like there's Lil Michaela, for example, is like the virtual influencer, and whatever's going on behind that is super successful. And I would imagine that that's mostly with data input. And like I say, myself, I don't know how I feel about that and whether I would personally be influenced by something like that. And I'm open to, like I say, open to discussion, open to change my mind. But I definitely think that obviously there's so many brands and like agencies and whatnot that are seeing so much success from diving into Web3. So it's definitely can be successful. I just need to open my mind.
We were having this conversation earlier.
We were just literally having this conversation on how Bumble would look like in the metaverse space. Yes, funny one to imagine. But I think taking us back to what we were just discussing about experimenting, right, with influencer. I think that's just that, and that's exactly what brands are doing in the metaverse, right? In the same way that we fragment the way we approach influencer, we are fragmenting data as well. So in the metaverse, we can have multiple different personas talking with different audiences as well. And so targeting becomes a little bit more complex and at the same time very exciting for brands as well, right? Because it allows you to experiment more with different audiences, with different interests, understand what communities really engage with your brand. But I like that. I feel like it's a great space for brands to start experimenting and really understanding what works for their communities.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be a really interesting space. I mean, like you can already see that for fashion brands and beauty brands, it's taking off in a massive way. I think on a Bumble side, we obviously have an extremely human product. It's all about real people connecting. And so I think it's going to be really interesting to see how the humanity continues to evolve within these virtual spaces and how much humanity can be carried through, because I know we've talked a bit today about how data can give you a sense of emotions, it can give you a sense of feeling of your community, but can it build that real human connection, and whether that's enough for consumers or not, or whether they'll stick within that real people space and not want to leave it. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how much it can evolve to bring that human touch and to bring that real first person experience into the Web3 space. And then who knows, I mean, if it can do that, the options are limited.
Yeah, if it can do that, I'm sold.
100%. And to add on top of that, how it can encourage consumer experience to evolve, right? If you gotta take this to the next level. So for instance, from a dating perspective, how can we take those moments, those exciting, butterfly in the stomach moments leading up to the dates, to metaverse, and how can we build that connection, right? prior to the actual date? How can we establish that connection prior to meeting in person? So I feel like there are so many different avenues that we can explore that creatively, especially with influencers playing a big role on it to connect with communities, and it's definitely an exciting space.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. We're almost at the end of our first session. I don't know if there's any questions. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. Are you still with me? Yeah? Cool. Anyone got any questions they'd like to pose to our speakers before we round up? Don't be shy. Okay, great. No, thank you, ladies, for an amazing discussion on data, making it sound exciting and interesting. So I'm just going to bring this to an end. I'd love for you all to enjoy the food and drink over to my right, and then we have our VR experiences there as well. So please head down there and experience that as well. My mic keeps cutting, I'm going to put it down. But yeah, we're just going to take a 20-minute break, so please feel free and network, and we'll join you in 20 minutes back here for session 2. Thank you.
Thank you.